Welcome to Prayer and Bible Band, Lesson 2. I do not own the rights to this music. Today's topic is dealing with the feelings of being forsaken. I'm going to repeat that. Dealing with the feelings of being forsaken. Our background reading scriptures: Psalm chapter 27, verse 10, Isaiah chapter 49, verse 14, Isaiah chapter 53, verse 3, Isaiah chapter 54, verse 16, Judges chapter 10, verse 13, and Matthew chapter 27, verse 46. The devotional reading: Psalm 22, verses 1 through 11. Our background reading scriptures: Psalm chapter 27, verse 10. When my father and my mother forsake me, then the Lord will take me up. Isaiah chapter 49, verse 14. But Zion said, the Lord hath forsaken me, and my Lord hath forgotten me. Isaiah chapter 53, verse 3. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows, and acquainted with grief. And we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Isaiah chapter 54, verse 16. Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work. And I have created the waster to destroy. Judges chapter 10, verse 13. Yet ye have forsaken me, and served other gods, wherefore I will deliver you no more. Matthew chapter 27, verse 46. And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Psalm chapter 22, verses 1 through 11. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why art thou so far from helping me, and from the words of my roaring? O my God, I cry in the daytime, but thou hearest not, and in the night season, and am not silent. But thou art holy, O thou that inhabitest the praises of Israel. Our fathers trusted in thee. They trusted, and thou didst deliver them. They cried unto thee, and were delivered. They trusted in thee, and were not confounded. But I am a worm and no man, a reproach of men, and despised of the people. All they that see me laugh me to scorn. They shoot out the lip, they shake the head, saying, He trusted on the Lord that he would deliver him. Let him deliver him, seeing he delighted in him. But thou art he that took me out of the womb. Thou didst make me hope when I was upon my mother's breast. I was cast upon thee from the womb. Thou art my God from my mother's belly. Be not far from me, for trouble is near, for there is none to help. The central verse, I will read the King James Version and then the New International Version of Hebrews chapter 13, verse 5. Let your conversation be without covetousness, and be content with such things as you have. For he hath said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. The NIV Version. Keep your lives free from the love of money, and be content with what you have, because God has said, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. The key terms for today's lesson: trauma, abandonment, and forsaken. Trauma, an injury such as a wound to living tissue caused by an extrinsic agent, a disordered psychic or behavioral state resulting from severe mental or emotional stress or physical injury. Abandonment, the state of being abandoned, to leave and never return to, give up completely, to stop having or doing. Forsaken, to renounce or turn away from entirely. The introduction says, life is filled with disappointments that cause a person to feel abandoned or forsaken. It is not a particularly good feeling, accidental or on purpose. It gives a person such a sense of helplessness when he feels forsaken. Sometimes the cause of the feeling was not designed to make a person feel the pain of being forsaken or abandoned, but the pain is real and hurts. Sometimes the person who causes the abandonment seemingly has good reasons for their actions, but the pain is still real to the receiver of the abandonment. Many people in the Bible experienced the feelings of being forsaken, and they had to deal with that feeling. The discussion says the feeling of being forsaken creates trauma in the minds of many people. It sometimes has an impact on their faith and their trust in God and other people. Sometimes the trauma includes emotional neglect, sexual abuse, domestic violence, physical neglect, and emotional and physical abuse. Our world is filled with hurting, neglected people who often feel abandoned and forsaken by God and the church. The church needs to reach out and provide help to those willing to admit that they need help and are willing to reach out and receive help. Believers must deal with their feelings, knowing they are not alone with their problems. They also need to know and understand it is not sinful to have problems. The Word tells the believer not to think it is strange because they have feelings and may be going through trials that try their very souls. The Lord promised that even when believers' mothers and fathers forsake them, He will be there for them to comfort and help them. The Lord promised that He will never leave nor forsake the believer. When the believer knows he is doing all he can to live a righteous life, he must apply the Word to his life. David was a king in Israel, but he often felt forsaken as he ran from Saul, Absalom, and his third son, who tried to overthrow him. However, he remembered how God constantly made ways for him. He said in Psalm chapter 37, verse 25, I have been young and now am old, yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. Jesus knew the hurt of being forsaken. He knew how it felt to feel abandoned. His disciples had walked and talked with him for 3.5 years. They ate and slept with him, but when he was taken to be put to death, they all fled and abandoned him, except a few. After the entire group of disciples left, his Father turned his back on him. Jesus knew his purpose, yet his flesh felt the pain and hurt of being forsaken. So he cried out to his Father, asking him why he was forsaking him. He had to command his spirit to God. He had to commend his spirit to God to endure the extreme pain and hurt he was feeling. Unlike the disciples, he had never been separated from his Father. When he accepted the world's sins on his shoulders, his Father could no longer be connected with him because God could not carry the sins. His Son had to do it alone. Sometimes God allows rejection to come into a believer's life, and this causes feelings of being forsaken. Know that it is just for a season. God will comfort and strengthen the believer every time. Adjust your feelings and know that weeping endures for a night or even a season, but joy will come in the morning. God says, "Do not be weary in well doing, for you will reap if you faint not." And that's Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. The conclusion says, one of the best ways to deal with the feeling of being forsaken is to surround yourself with people who love and wish you well. Connect with people that you can trust. Begin to seek God by reading His Word and spending time in prayer with Him. God's Word will be a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my pathway. And that's Psalm 119, verse 105. If a believer wants the comfort of God in his life, he must be obedient to God's Word and separate himself from all known evil. He must learn to be strong in the Lord and in the power of His might. And that's Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10. He must also learn to trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. And that's Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5. He must spend time worshiping God, even when it's not convenient. Sometimes his worship must be a sacrifice. The believer must remember that Jesus is our perfect example. Jesus was despised and forsaken by men that He had not done anything to, and they hated Him without a cause. God told King Solomon that if he looked for Him, He would allow him to find him. But if he forsakes God, God will forsake him forever. And that's 2 Chronicles chapter 15, verses 1 and 2. He is yet saying that to some of the believers, when believers forsake God, they come under His judgment. It has been said by a writer named Gail MacDonald that the minute we stop feeding our inner fire with God, it begins to die out, and we face the danger of forsaking God. The questions for today's lesson, and you can search the scriptures on your own. Question 1. What causes feelings of abandonment? Question 2. What can a believer do to help eliminate the feeling of being forsaken? Question 3. What has God promised to do when a believer feels forsaken? Question 4. Why did David feel forsaken? The essential thought says, don't allow your feelings to control your life. Know that God is yet with you. The end. God bless you, and thank you for joining me today.